over half of U.S. shoppers have already started shopping. And so we're hearing this more and more also in the media that people are starting earlier so they can recognize the deals and also maybe so they can spread it out a little bit in their budget.
With the gift-giving season drawing nearer, mental, physical, and financial stress may be increasing, especially considering the cost of almost everything is higher than a year ago. A Kansas State University Family Resource Management specialist says keeping things simple and focusing on what makes the holidays special for you can help relieve stress and make the holidays more joyful. On today's Sound Living, Making the Holidays Special. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. K-State Research and Extension Family Resource Management Specialist Elizabeth Kish suggests identifying how much you want to spend for the holidays and then focusing on the activities that you enjoy. Elizabeth, as the holidays get closer and closer, we start to think about not only gift giving, but maybe some of the process that goes into that. And a lot of that really has to do with maybe some self-reflection and thinking about what the holidays really mean to you and your family.
That's right. I think if we can get clear for ourselves what the holidays do mean for us, and when we talk about the holidays, we mean kind of all of these winter holidays that might start with, for some people, maybe Halloween, but probably most of us start with Thanksgiving and then go through New Year's, whichever holidays we might be celebrating. And that's a lot of days and a lot of events that can be stressful, can take up a lot of our mental energy as well as our time, and of course can cost money.
And that's kind of the thing we run into here, isn't it? Is trying to balance what we like to do, what we'd want to do, but also knowing that we do have that limited resource availability.
That's right. And we often think of money as our biggest limiting resource, but in reality, when it comes to some of these holiday celebrations, time can be a more binding or a stronger limit than money, perhaps. But we all have limits, and I think one way to approach just managing our time, our energy, our money, is to think about really what's important to us as individuals, but then also what is it that our family most enjoys about the holidays, and really focus on those things, which for many families is the being together, playing the board games, or being outside doing activities. And many of those things don't actually cost a lot of money.
Food is another big part of the holiday celebration as well.
Yes, food is very important. So when we do talk about the dollars and cents of the holidays, we definitely encourage people to think about all of the different types of expenses you might have for all of these holidays. Food, for baking, we have, traditional celebration meals. Maybe you host a party or an open house. So there's the food that you'll be serving to others. There may be also, you may want to seek out convenience meals or eat out if you're on the go for shopping or other things. Some things that people maybe don't sort of think about budgeting for, but actually might spend money on, like the family pictures, or if you have your home deep cleaned by a service, or you get your carpet cleaned at this time of year. Think of that as part of your holiday budget. If you're tipping the people, who provide services to you on a regular basis, your hair person, your nail person, if you use those services, or other services that you might use regularly. This is the time of year when we often make charitable donations. So that would be another thing to think about in terms of your holiday budget.
We often also add in decorations. We might get the plates and the napkins that match that certain holiday event, and that might be something that we could either eliminate or find another way to do.
That's right. In terms of the decorations, yes, think about, are there decorations that maybe you can reuse, or are there ways to decorate, the napkins and the plates? And yes, using cloth napkins, you do have to launder them. It's not as easy depending on the size of your group. Maybe paper makes more sense, but also think about the environmental impact of the decorations and the gift wrap.
I think we also sometimes have some unrealistic expectations of the holiday, and that can not only be stressful from a financial standpoint, but really just from a mental standpoint as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, in this age of Instagram and other social media platforms, what we see from the influencers or the accounts that we might like to check in on or follow, it's what they want us to see. We don't see the pile of dishes in the sink, or we don't, after this beautiful holiday baking takes place, or we don't see, everything stuffed in a closet maybe. So while basic cleaning and, picking things up, the perfectionism and the high standards that we place on ourselves, especially when it comes to food and people maybe sit down and eat and then they go and watch a football game or something, and oh yeah, that was great. So, I mean, it's wonderful to create this celebratory atmosphere and environment for your family and your guests. However, again, think about, is it more about being together and less about all of the decorations and all of those things being perfect? And it probably is.
There are certain things that happen on certain days during the holidays, but the rest of the time we're really kind of maybe trying to stick to more of a normal routine.
That's right. If you can, especially for children, this is a lot of stimulation for children. And, they may be eating differently, maybe more sweets than usual. So if you can keep their meal times at their regular time, if you can keep their bedtime fairly regular, also think about how much can they really handle in terms of events and stimulation, especially if they're younger. As children get older, they can tell you themselves what they're interested in doing or what they most enjoy, and then you can set some priorities based on that.
Seems like with kids, it's always better if you can keep them engaged and if you can keep them physically active so that they're maybe blowing off some of that steam.
Yeah, I would guess so. And that's where being outdoors can really help, or being in an indoor atmosphere where it's okay for kids to run around and get wild.
I guess one of the other major stressors is the fact that it is also a gift-giving time. And along those lines, we need to, I guess, first of all, know who we would like to purchase gifts for. So we maybe need to jot some names down and take it from there.
Yes, I think having a list can be really helpful, and also having some conversation with your family members about what is an appropriate dollar amount, or, how significant a gift something might be, and just start making lists. I'm a big believer in making a list and then doing your browsing and shopping, and then at another time doing your buying. Because if you know what good prices are, then you can recognize them and take advantage of them. Whereas if you try to do the browsing and the buying all at once, you get into the shopping fog, right? Or it's maybe, it's a fog, but it's also like you yourself get a little bit overstimulated and you're more likely to overspend or spend more than you otherwise plan to.
It seems like you never want to do anything when you're kind of under the gun. So having that list and maybe preparing ahead of time is not only going to save you some mental stress, but also, as you point out, probably going to save you some money as well.
Sure, it certainly can. And some research has been reported already that, for example, over half of U.S. shoppers have already started shopping. And so we're hearing this more and more also in the media, that people are starting earlier so they can recognize the deals, and also maybe so they can spread it out a little bit in their budget.
And it seems like retailers kind of got on that bandwagon real early as well and started doing early Black Friday events.
That's correct. And I think maybe most of us know by now that the Black Friday prices, they may be actually better prices, but they're also sometimes on things, they're special items, maybe not really the item that you wanted to buy. So again, this is where if you know what it is you're looking for and you know what a good price is, you can recognize it regardless of the day of the week or the shopping days of the day.
One of the things I've been seeing this year that I don't really remember seeing as much in the past is the buy now 0% interest for 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, depending on how much you spend. What are some maybe things we need to keep in mind when we go down that road?
Well, certainly, I think you need to keep in mind that while there's no interest, you have to understand what the repayment expectations are. It may mean that you just make one payment in 6 months, or it may mean you're supposed to be making payments along the way. So you really have to understand the terms and conditions. And what that does is, yes, you don't pay interest, but you still have to pay for the item. Again, you just have to understand what the conditions are. And I guess the other thing is, if you can't, unless it's something kind of substantial that is going to last for longer than it takes you to repay it, really probably think about is if this is a toy or if this is a gift for a child or if this is clothing, am I still going to be wearing this in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, or am I going to be done with it? If the answer is I'm not going to be using it or wearing it or the recipient is not, then maybe there's some other item that could be more appropriate.
We always want to pay cash when we can.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we say that, and I certainly do realize that that's not possible for everyone. But if you can minimize the debt hangover, as we call it in January, right? Anything you can do to pay more upfront and finance less is a good thing.
And sometimes we forget when we use credit cards or we do the buy now, pay later type thing. We sometimes forget how much we're actually adding to our Christmas budget. That's
right. And I think that's probably the biggest thing to keep in mind is if you're spending cash, you may wonder, well, I had all this, I had X amount of cash. Where did it go? Hopefully you're keeping your receipts. But if you're using credit in whatever form you're using, also keep track of the receipts. I mean, number one, you want to compare them to your credit card statements, either, when you get home and look online or if you get a paper statement still, so you can keep in mind and a mental tally of how much you're spending. That's a really good point.
We often think about buying for family, but we also sometimes buy for coworkers as well, so that needs to be figured into the budget too.
Right, and I think there's still a bit of time, perhaps, to have conversations with your coworker groups about how you would like, as a group, to celebrate. And maybe not everyone wants to do the gift giving, but maybe people would like to have a potluck or a carry-in or a cookie exchange, or maybe go out for dessert or go out for a little bit in the evening after work someday or lunch and just enjoy the time together that way rather than giving gifts that may or may not be useful or welcome.
And also, if you're looking for some of those unique gifts and you would like to shop locally, there are a lot of options, a lot of times a lot of niche-type stores at the local level.
That's right. Shopping locally it can help you really get into the holiday season, especially if the weather's a little bit crisp and, the downtowns or the local places are decorated and you might run into people that you know, and you're supporting your friends and neighbors and their local businesses.
I think the main thing we're hitting on here is the fact that make the holidays what you want the holidays to be and be comfortable with what you decide and try and keep that stress level, both mentally and financially, as low as possible.
That's right. And I like it. It's what you decide and what works for you, and to be comfortable with that. And no apologies, right? Everyone approaches the holidays differently, and we all should have the freedom to enjoy them in our own way.
And we normally remember the memories that are created during the holidays much more than maybe the gifts.
I think that's probably correct. Yes, it's the memories, it's the feelings that we had, or the other sensory cues like the baking cookies or the meal, the other smells from the meal, the roasting turkey, etc.
That's K-State Research and Extension Family Resource Management Specialist Elizabeth Kish, with tips for reducing stress, mental, physical, and financial as we celebrate the holidays this year. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. And this is the K-State Radio Network.